Selling out is easy to do. It's not so hard to find a buyer for you. When money talks, you're under its spell. Ah, but what do you have when there's nothing left to sell?
And there's a fire on Junk Island where they send their garbage. Is anybody listening? After work, we'll watch the seagulls diving in, and out of the lashing towers of flame, it twinkles like a pile of rotting jewels left to bake in the sun. Is anybody listening? And we're just like those condom wrappers, used up, torn up, thrown away. And we're just like yesterday's headlines, drifting, floating towards the blaze. And if we robbed the liquor store, we could be in Tijuana by the crack of dawn. And if we robbed the mayor's mansion, we'd pawn his modern art and make a fortune. And if we robbed the lonely widow, we'd steal her credit cards and buy a cottage by the ocean. And we could swim out to Junk Island. We'll burn up like the seagulls and the whiskey bottles. We're scrap valentines, we're tangerine rinds, we're crimes, 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 crimes. We're scrap valentines, we're tangerine rinds, we're crimes, 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 crimes. That is Crimes by the Blood Brothers. We dedicate that to our president-elect, Donald Trump. This is the post-election episode of Finding My Audience. You know, I escaped the United States to get away from all this. And, well, for one thing, I had to do a bunch of tax stuff while I'm here in the, now I'm in Ireland. I was in London. I'm in Dublin now. This is going to be we're just doing a recap of sort of what went down, my takes on it, very important stuff. And we'll pick up later with more of the actual trip stuff and everything. But like I said, I had to do all this tax stuff, and it really threw a wrench into everything because pretty much every day I had something I had to do, even though I took time off work. But that's the thing about life, you know. You can never just have a nice time. Something will happen, usually on a global scale, that will ruin your time. This is important to remember. And the important thing also to remember is that really the only way to really relax is through death. But that's okay. You know, hey, look, America failed its big test. Whoops. What are you going to do? You know, the question was simple. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And a majority of people got it wrong. And they may feel differently about that statement, but those are just feelings, you know. If we look back to the not so distant history, you can see that Trump's America exacerbated a global problem, one of which we hadn't seen in a century, most of us in our lifetimes. And as a result, fascism was on the ballot and it won. And if that isn't democracy and the dumbest country in the world, I don't know what is. And if failing a test isn't American, I don't know what is. So that's where we are. That's what America is. That's who we are. And you know, the worst part about it, in my view, at least besides all the bad stuff, is that people who regularly attend church in a junior high school cafetorium are happy about the results. I grew up in the church. My grandfather was a Southern Baptist minister. Very small congregation. I guess, you know, if you listen to the Florida episode, I talked about this. He got kicked out of the church that he founded, the First Baptist Church of Orange Park. Or was it Island View? I can't even remember. It was before my time. But he got kicked out because he wasn't fire and brimstone enough. And then I remember he bought some plot of land and they were working on this, and he partnered with an up-and-coming church, and this is around the time that he was right before he was diagnosed with brain cancer and died, which kind of put the kibosh on the whole God stuff for me. He was like a pretty good guy, you know, and that's sort of what how life shook out for him. And so we started to go to this church, and this church met in a junior high school cafetorium. And if you guys are lucky enough to not know what a cafetorium is, I'm really envious of you because I'm a product of the Florida public school system. Um, we were those guys, when you see the evolutionary thing and you see the fish that crawl out and then become the thing. We were somewhere in the middle. We were like in the swampy part of that. That's who we were. We went to school in things called portables, which sounds like something you'd throw away. They're little trailers, basically. So portable, I think, sounds worse than a trailer. Just call it a trailer. But anyway, we started going to this church, and we started going, and they would meet in this cafetorium. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm just going to a school, not only during the week, but also on the weekend. And it was just, the pastor was awful. He's some dumb piece of crap. I'm trying not to curse on the thing. Oh, we're at 6 minutes. He was a dumb piece of shit. Okay, he was a dumb pos. Um, and they're like singing, and it's like literally where kids would eat their school, and like people are singing and doing like the dumb contemporary worship stuff. I mean, at least that was my thing. I'm like, at least just sing an old hymn. Isn't the whole point of church to be like traditional, to have some history there? No, it was very new and happening, and it just sucks. So and it's like with the results, it's like you can't help but I think of my little nieces. They're gonna grow up in this world. I think of my friends, the actually marginalized people who aren't white families that were born, live their entire lives, and will die in the same zip code. Losers. And is that everyone that voted for Trump? No, no. Of course, he did get a lot of Latinos and a higher percentage of black guys and all that stuff. But if you look at the numbers, more white people voted. Um, and look what happened. Look what happened. I don't want to do that thing where people are like, well, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We got through it again. We didn't really get through it. A cool million of people died. And yes, some of that was during Biden, but who's that? I don't know who that is. That's a guy that does not exist anymore. He hasn't existed for some time. It didn't feel like the Democrats wanted to win, in my personal opinion. Was Kamala a perfect candidate? Of course not. Did she have massive problems? Yes. Is the Democratic Party a mess? Yes. But you can't tell me that she was worse than Hillary Clinton, and you can't tell me the Democratic Party is worse than the Republican Party. You just can't do that. You could do that, but you would be wrong. And there are some things, there's just a bias in America to be a big, fat asshole. I've said this for a long time. I remember thinking this when I was probably in high school or whatever, but America is a big, dumb country for big, dumb people. That's what it's for. It's not for skinny people with hearts and brains. I'm cracking myself up. But the thing is, it's like, look, I think at some point I did predict that, when Biden was still in the race, I was very much like, oh, Trump could easily win the popular vote. And when Kamala took over, I was like, okay, probably won't win the popular vote, but he did. Another thing that I predicted was that this would be the first election in a long time where the count would go down from the cycle before. And it looks like that is going to happen. Low voter turnout. What are you going to do? We're resilient bastards, aren't we? I know I am. Think of the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Didn't you survive? If you're having the great fortune to listen to this podcast, you survived. Maybe you survived violence. Maybe you survived abuse. Maybe you survived deceit. Maybe the betrayal of a dear friend. We got to dig deep. We got to hunker down, and we can't let the other bastards win, because that's one thing to remember in America. We are all bastards. We are all bastards. And if this all makes me look like a whining loser, well, then why don't you go ahead and elect me president of the United States of America, huh? How about that, you stupid idiot? So are there takeaways? I don't really know. I'm going to get a gun. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I think it's gun time. I can say this. I'm a survivor of gun violence, which is nowhere near as bad as the betrayal of a dear friend. I've had both. But there is some solace. There is some good news. I will hold on to this. The Republicans, as they always do, at least in my lifetime, and if you actually look at the history, it looks like it too. They will literally bring upon some catastrophe. Maybe something incredibly awful we've never seen, we haven't really envisioned yet, something new, exciting. Maybe it'll just be like, tale as old as time. Financial crash, maybe war, maybe, I don't know, airplanes will fly into tall buildings on our country's soil, maybe a contagious mortal illness. It's just atomic clockwork with this party. And at some point, we will all suffer together, and that will bring us together. And when we do, I will smile knowing that, like the last time and the time before, I told you so. I don't know who I'm talking to here. Maybe my mom if she's listening. But I told you so. I told you all. And unless you're rich, of course you'll be fine. Good for you. Must be nice. And there's all this like scrambling now. What do we do? What do we do? The left is saying, oh, maybe the left needs these podcasters like Joe Rogan. Sorry if I'm sweating. I've been traveling all day. Here's my pitch, okay? Maybe if we think that we need podcasting heroes for the young men on the left, may I nominate myself? Young men of America, incels of YouTube, hear me. I have had more and better sex than Donald Trump and Joe Rogan combined. This is a fact. You can ask anybody, easily Matt Walsh. Steven Crowder has never even had sex. So let's just get that word out there. There's a new dumb piece of shit in town. His name's Alan Strickland Williams. He's for the good guys. I can get you laid. I can tell you what to put on your profiles. I can tell you how to talk to women. Because you know what? Sometimes to be a real alpha, you got to be a little gay with it. You got to be a little different. You got to be a little femme, a little fae. That's just the way it works. I'm sorry. That's just the world we live in. Otherwise, you're just going to get one of these trad wives that they don't even really know what they're doing. I bet if you actually ate any of their food, it tastes like just cornstarch, But it's not just all about the men, the young men, the ladies out here too. I mean, I don't even really, I'm going to joke about it, but I don't really want to because I do just generally feel so bad for the women in this country because it is just, God, just like, can you, even if you like Donald Trump, you have to recognize that it's just like, wow, really twice. And again, with Hillary, I get it. Everyone hated Hillary. But this one, it's like, really? I mean, geez, okay. I guess we just really, really, really have that bias. And we do. But to the ladies, I will say, and even to your own kind voted against you, which is why I've said you can never trust women, But really, you're in a world where your rights are being taken away by people that don't even understand what actually happens in your body. It's just got to be so maddening. It's nuts. It's stupid. Women should do that thing where they stop having sex with men. That's going around. I think it's called 4B. But I will say this, fellas, get a vasectomy. Take it into your own hands. Take a load off. You get it? Load, like a load of cum. Okay? We're on the same page. And to any women out there hurting right now, not knowing what to do, not feeling trustful of men, feeling angry, perhaps even violent, which I understand, and you would be right to. You'd be wrong not to. Not that you need a man to say it. I know that. But just remember, you can always have sex with me. 5-year. Oh, I think I just hit. I'm the father of a 5-year-old vasectomy. You can have sex with me, and maybe that's flippant. Maybe it's not actually helpful. Maybe it's not actually helpful, but it will make you feel better. And I'm just trying to do my part. We're all going to make a federal program where we can bus women from all over the country to Southern California, and they can have sex with me. And that's a joke, kind of. But fellas, this is an opportunity to step up. We need to look out for the ladies. I think this is part of what being a man is. You see these guys, you see them acting wrong, do something about it. Here's a little trick I figured out, and kind of because I think I'm a man, I think we kind of have a sort of insight into how to deal with other men. And, just kick them in the nuts. That's pretty simple. Just kick them in the nuts. I went to a watch party, and at the watch party, I will say this: 2 women gave me their numbers. It was that's how depressing it was. But one girl lived in Culver City, so I was kind of like, that's not really why I'm here. If I'm trying to get out, I'm trying to get out. And this beautiful woman, she stopped me. She stopped me at the watch party, and she goes, she was just like, your hair. And I was like, oh yeah, my hair, it's all I have. I kind of like my little rote response. But then she heard my accent. She was like, American. And I was like, yeah. And she had some accent. I couldn't really place where she was from. But she like offered her hand, and I offered my hand. And I give a firm shake, but like with the, not I'm not trying to break your arm. And she goes, deft touch, and I was like, ooh. And so I tried to get her number, but I think I put in my phone number wrong. I couldn't get through, or maybe she was just ignoring me. Hey, whatever. That's fair. Tensions were high at the watch party. It was a weird vibe here in the UK, or there in the UK. Now I'm in Dublin. But I tweeted this during the watch party, and I knew we were going to lose Florida. I knew we were going to lose Florida. It's just, look, I grew up there, so I tweeted this. Florida, the dumbest people I've ever met in my stupid life. Ugliest motherfuckers who at one glance would turn you to stone faster than Medusa. The bane of my existence, the locus of ignorance. I cannot wait to watch it sink into the ocean. I will miss my family terribly, and I will. But it will happen. I mean, this is math. This is math. This is a thing that we don't really know how to do anymore. I usually, in these times, I go, oh, I'm so thankful to live in Los Angeles, in California, this progressive stronghold in America. But the LA voting was terrible. We voted for slavery and for incarcerated people to force them to do work. I'm sorry. I do kind of get why people don't care. If you're a criminal, I get why people don't care, because that's the dumb black and white world we live in. But I'm sorry. The saying is do the crime, pay the time. The saying is not do the crime, pay the time, do a little extra work on top of that. No. You do the crime so that you can be removed from society to get a break, you know, not to start making license plates. And then we voted against rent control. We voted against rent control. We voted against rent control. But, you know, I still love LA. I'm going to come back at least for a little bit. I also found out, I'll talk more about it later on an actual one where I kind of do a recap of the actual trip and not just the election stuff. But I found out the process to become a citizen somewhere else. It still takes years. It still takes a while. So it's not like you just immediately bam and then you're gone. I think for that, you need to create a new identity and talk to some guy that works in a vacuum cleaner store that's a front for passport fraud. But we're not there yet. I'm still asking around. But even with all that, I've been having a good time. I hope that you can do what you need to do to keep going. Yes, I'm being ridiculous on here or whatever, but you know, we got to do what we got to do. And I'm a bit of a jokester, so that's why I'm dealing with this. And also, I'm sorry if you find any of this annoying or flippant or whatever. Um, it seems like that's what makes up a successful podcast, you know. So I'm just trying to do what I'm doing. I think we're gonna wrap it up there because I got to go make it to the They Might Be Giants concert. I saw them in London. I've seen them again tonight thanks to the largesse of Megan Keister, one of our greatest American women. Um, and more on that later as well. I'm going to do a whole They Might Be Giants sort of recap because I saw them twice and having a lot of feelings, having a lot of thoughts while I was watching them. But I just want to say thank you for listening. Join the Patreon. Buy the album Ran Through. If you want to listen to it on Spotify, get some of those numbers up. But if you want to buy it, if you have any extra cash laying around, buy it on Bandcamp. You can pre-order it on vinyl. If you already have a subscription somewhere, apparently you're supposed to do that. But if not, do it on Bandcamp. And yeah, I appreciate y'all. Um, Thanks for listening. Keep your chin up. You're a resilient bastard. We're resilient bastards. And I'll see you, resilient bastards, in the funny papers.